Jesus didn't have a problem with people that's in the streets. He had a problem with religious people.
How can I help anybody when when I was not even able to help my own son?
I would never do that. I would never do that. And I became that in a matter of minutes when they took my pain pills away.
And I said, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not what I used to be.
This is Faith in Your Recovery. I am Randy Davis. Welcome to the battle. Thanks once again for tuning in. We're glad you've joined us. Our podcast, Faith in Your Recovery, is kind of governed by our parent organization, A Better Life, Brianna's Hope, a support and recovery movement for those battling the battle with substance use disorder. And during our podcast, we like to focus and concentrate on all things recovery. That covers a broad space, but I feel really good about how we've maintained the integrity of that thought and purpose, and we're just glad you tuned in. Let us know what you think of our podcast. We're excited about today's. We have with us a guest, Mr. Scott Bronner. Scott was a part of episode 30, which was back in, let's see, that was early August of 2022. So that's been about a year and a half ago here, getting close. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks, Randy. I appreciate you having me back.
Hey, we welcome the opportunity. I know you've gone through a lot of changes. You were early in your recovery then.
Yeah.
You were stretching your horizons, your experiences in a very positive way at that time.
For once.
Yeah, and you've maintained that, continued forward with it. Let's go back toward the beginning. Tell the folks what your struggles were, the battles that you had. Your own addictions and what that did. They can always go back to episode 30 and get the details, but give them kind of an overview of that, please.
Sure. Before I got into drugs and drinking, looking back, I really did struggle with depression and codependency and anxiety. Later on, I learned that if you introduce a foreign substance into your body, that changes the game. Even if it's artificial, it still felt better than what I usually felt like in my own skin.
And so what age were you at that time, Scott, give or take?
I had my first experience with being drunk on alcohol at 15, and then I smoked my first bit of marijuana at 16.
Okay, and you're how old now?
I'm 53.
Okay. How many years did you battle with the alcohol, the marijuana, or anything else that came along?
Well, all that really evolved into harder and stronger things like pills and psychedelics. But I dare say I probably had very easily a 30-year downward spiral.
Okay, and that there probably wasn't a lot of positive that you recalled during that time of life's experiences or feelings towards self. I don't want to talk you into anything, but address that.
Okay, well, there were moments, long moments of contentment and happiness. But looking back, when things were good, they were really great. And when they were bad, it was absolutely terrible.
So it was either one extreme or the other.
Either one or the other, right. Right.
Okay, what was it that inspired you to start to move toward the positive life?
That started with my absolute rock bottom. And survived that evening, and then I decided maybe indeed I'm accountable for a huge majority of reasons why I got myself.
So what was that bottom that you just mentioned?
I found myself, I think I had just turned 50.
Okay.
And I was divorced and came to the realization I was a terrible husband and a terrible father. I was a convicted felon, so I was basically unemployable. No social life, no personal life, no hope, no direction. And it really wasn't too far from the studio. I decided it'd be the best idea to take my own life. And with the faith background I had, I know in my belief system anyway, if you take your own life, that's the ultimate lack of faith. And you'll probably end up not going to heaven. But in that space of time, I was perfectly satisfied and comfortable, and it seemed logical to me that I could not live this life in any capacity. So I was going to take my own, face my judgment, and then whatever happened after that would be much better than living on this planet.
So you mentioned a few moments ago you recognized personal accountability for where you were and decided you didn't want to be there anymore.
Right.
Okay, what was one of your initial steps forward after that thought, after recognizing maybe I'm responsible, which means I can also be responsible for something positive? What was one of the first steps?
Well, one of the first steps was realizing that I didn't succeed in my attempt. And through all the self-pity and depression and sadness and failures that I had created, I realized that while I'm still here, there's got to be a much better direction to live this life. I mean, I can't take back anything. But if I'm given a second chance, let's see what maybe I can and make of it. So I have got to get off the drugs. I have got to get off the drinking. And there's got to be a much better way. I just didn't know what to do or how to do that.
So what did you find? Which way did you turn? Obviously, you turned toward the positive, turned toward recovery. But what did it say at the door of recovery for you? What did that mean? Your experience. Folks, we recognize and realize no two journeys are the same, no two struggles are the same. But we do know there's a lot to gain from somebody else's victory. And it does give us an option, if nothing else, should fill us with hope. This is season of Christmas. We're in the holiday season here. We're at the end of November. As we record this, we've got Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Yeah.
We've got Christmas in another month. A lot of miracles happen in that time frame. What was that step for you that gave you renewed hope, belief that, hey, maybe, just maybe, I can make this happen?
It's kind of a twofold answer.
Okay, give us both.
Sure. I learned initially that I myself am absolutely powerless over my compulsion and my addiction. And as a result, my life had become unmanageable.
So that's that first step.
Yes.
With AA, correct? I've never been through AA, so I don't have the greatest grasp on the steps, but I do recognize that. And in AA or out of AA, I think that's the old, as long as you're in denial, there's very little hope, and that's recognizing I have a problem.
It's
and if I could have if I could handle it myself, I would have already.
First step to humbling yourself.
Yeah.
And then realizing I blew it, and that there is a problem.
So step 2 then.
Recognizing that there is a power much greater than myself.
We all need that, whether we're into addiction or not, okay? We call ourselves faith-based as an organization. We believe that with our podcast. Don't believe in faith forced. But we want to live before you the kind of life that shows there is a better way. I'm not better than anybody. I have found a better way.
Exactly.
And that way exists for each of us.
Right.
So, yeah. So where did that take you? You accepted those 2 premises, steps. Where did that take you?
Well, I had always had that belief, but I never really truly had a faith. And even more so, I didn't have a relationship with Jesus Christ. I believed in him. I prayed to him, but...
And it's one thing to believe and another thing to commit.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Yes, it is. The second part of answer to your question would have to be I was still trying to get over my ego, get over self. And I was required to go to these recovery meetings. I think
Required by
Bethel
law?
House.
Okay.
Yeah, at this point, I was inside, brand new client at Bethel House. And they, as a part of a requirement to stay there, you must do 90 meetings in 90 days. That's one meeting, AA or Narcotics Anonymous or Heroin Anonymous, whatever your organized meeting preferences.
Yes.
And
Or a combination.
combination.
Yes.
So that worked for me. I did the combination. I started with AA, and then I kept that, and then I went to NA, and I identified more with that, but I kept both, along with, attending church and
Got you.
sponsor work and the literature. But I looked around this room and realized I was not alone in my struggle. This room was packed full of different aged people, different backgrounds people, different nationalities people. And we're all different, but we all have the same common illness. We had the same common problems, so that made us like-minded. Because in my addiction, I also got really hooked on solitude, being alone. I didn't want to be out amongst really anybody else. I was fine with my own personal space. And realizing I am not alone in all this. I am far from alone. There are legions of us out there who struggle with substance abuse. And every last one of us had to come into a realization that, wow, I'm actually powerless over this. And my life is completely unmanageable. So it was like the strength and number. There was a comfort knowing that there was not just me.
Absolutely. That there were folks there who had been at it longer than you.
Yes.
The recovery effort that you could gain from and learn from.
Those
and
old school
realize-
veterans don't play in recovery. They're
Yeah.
very militant about it. And I really gravitated more towards them.
They were where you wanted to be, but
Yes.
they had been where you had lived for so long.
Exactly. And just to kind of flesh this out a little bit as a slippery slope, there were two individuals. One was younger than me, and the other was my same age, and they had long periods of recovery. And I became close to these two, and they were the two initially that I looked at and said, well, I really want what you have. I'm willing to do what you did to get what you have. And this isn't to be braggadocious, but just this process of recovery and life, they have both since relapsed. And so far, thank you, God, I have continued on uninterrupted.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Don't
yeah.
mean to make a comparison, but that's just how
No.
tricky this whole recovery business is.
I've said all my life, whether we're dealing with addiction, whatever it may be, a 20-foot extension ladder has 18 steps.
Uh-huh.
And you've got to take each one to get to the top, one step, and you can be to the bottom.
There are no shortcuts.
No. So you fought that battle, and I'm going to believe that you believe as much as as difficult as it may be to admit, it could happen to you.
It
So
could.
You've got to be wary.
Well, our enemy will kind of come at us when we're least suspecting
He'll
with just
hit
thoughts and feelings.
That
And
Achilles heel,
Yeah.
wherever it's at. Yours may be the drink, mine may be A, B, or C. We all have one. We're
Right.
only fooling ourselves if we don't.
so no one's
if we
immune to
can-
this, right? No one's immune to it. So the struggle is real, as it's said.
And recovery is not an exact science.
It is not.
Whether it's alcohol, whether it's pills,
Right.
some other drug, cocaine, it doesn't matter. Or something outside of the realm of drugs and alcohol. There's addictions to food,
There's
to porn.
Gambling,
Oh.
pornography, right?
We could go for a half an hour here,
Right.
just putting that list.
Because ultimately, I discovered we're hooked on dopamine. Those little dopamine hits our brain gives us.
Yes.
And it could be social media. It could be like we discovered, gambling or sex or pornography or compulsive eating.
Yes.
We're all after that dopamine hit. And
To feed that
Yeah.
and to get it. Absolutely. So you You were involved as a client. Did you say for about 3 months?
90 days, right.
90 days.
Uh-huh.
Then what happened? Yeah, what was that next step and how'd that come about?
It was actually my graduation night because by His Grace Ministries, who's the parent company of Bethel House and House of Schiffer, they hold a graduation for their clients. And it's basically you get a certificate and they say they talk about your 90-day journey and their personal experience.
Positive recognition
Exactly.
of where you've come from where you were.
Right.
Deserved.
I think well-deserved, absolutely. Because 90 days is no small amount of time when you're trying to get clean. And then in turn, I was allowed to, say a few things. And then we all graduated. It was photographs, and then it was a pizza party. That evening, my now sponsor, I'm going to give a shout out to Mike Smith of Bethel House Director, approached me. I think I was kind of off by myself, just reflecting. And he walked up and said, "So what are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, I didn't make plans. I don't know. Got a job I don't particularly like, so I'll probably find an apartment I don't particularly like and continue on this and do my best. I mean, you guys are always accessible to me, so I'm kind of looking around for a place right now." He said, "Well, what would you think about staying on here and helping me out?"
And this is all the night of your graduation.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Well, at first my initial thought was no. Then it turned to, well, why me? And his, well, why not you? So I'm not sure exactly what Mike saw in me, but I guess I had starting to earn back trust and a better reputation.
Obviously.
So a week later, I agreed, and he and the current house manager at that time began kind of training me and grooming me and teaching me how to deal with these guys in different situations and circumstances, what the responsibilities were. Now, as I gained experience, Mike would grant me like different privileges in increments. Like, okay, you don't have to sign out anymore on the sign out sheet. You can just kind of come and go. I trust you. And then the next step was, you don't have to keep track of your meetings. I know you go to meetings. Keep track of all these other guys. And finally ended up being, hey, how about you just not pay me rent anymore? You're doing this full time and you live here and you help me sleep better at night. So that allowed me to start a purpose that fit. It felt right. I don't particularly like to have power and dominion over other people, but at one time I walked in that door for the first time.
Sometimes the best way you can serve is by leading. And it's not always comfortable. It's certainly not always easy. It's necessary.
It's necessary.
All of the sheep need a shepherd.
And that put me under an intense microscope in the recovery community.
And accountability within that circle, your friends and those who were in leadership and guidance over you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm learning more and more my own way. I'm showing empathy in a lot of different cases.
Yeah.
However, there were boundaries in others. A failed drug screen, being late after curfew, or a combination of several things that led me to sit down with some of these gentlemen and say, "You're just not serious about this program. You're here just to get cheap rent, check boxes, and report to your parole officer that you're doing so well."
So those rule infractions, if I may call them that, were to you at least a sign of lack of deep commitment.
Yeah, either you're all in or you're kidding yourself and everybody else around you.
Okay.
And unfortunately, there were more times than not I would have to sit down and discharge a client, and that caused me to lose sleep and meals, because a lot of times I know what their story was. It's February, it's 10 below zero, the wind's kicked up. You got to go because you are now a threat to the rest of this house. Now, down the road, we'll get to this in a little bit. It did kind of smooth out a little bit. We gave them back through Turning Point of Madison County a willingness to reevaluate and recommit.
So did you see yourself in some of their actions? Did you
All of
just,
them.
with it, reflect back and go, that was me before
Yes.
I got serious?
Yes, the deception, the lies, the stories, trying to make an infraction seem plausible.
It's hard to manipulate a
Yeah, I would always
yes?
like, who do you think you're talking to here? If you think you could do it, I've done it. So don't pull it over on me, please.
Well, someone says there's nothing new under the sun.
There's nothing new under the sun. I mean, I would sit there with eye contact and nod my head like, oh, okay, that's, absolutely untrue. So,
Yeah.
go on. I'm interested. I have nothing else to do tonight. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I went to Mike, the house director, and I said, I'm having a lot of I know these, some people stay and excel, some people just gotta go. The ones that I have to discharge, those are keeping me up at night. It's weighing on my conscience.
Sure.
Because I can put myself in their shoes. Okay, now I'm kicked out and I want to go back to prison, or there's nowhere to sleep and it's wintertime. And his response to that was just as brilliant as it was simple. He said, Scott, they just haven't suffered enough. That night I slept like a baby. Babies don't sleep that good.
Absolutely. As the mothers, yes?
Yes.
No, but I get what he's saying.
I did too.
By that.
And not only relieved me of I guess, the burden of making those decisions, for other people, but, truly, I guess you haven't suffered enough to be accountable for wanting to really grab this and run.
And it had to be a constant reminder to you. I can't do this for them anyway.
No.
Only when they choose to get it done is it going to happen.
Hey, man, I got my own recovery to kind of,
Exactly.
lord over. So,
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for, your actions or your recovery.
So you were in leadership there, what was it, about 3 years? Is that what you
21
said?
months.
21 months.
Yeah.
Couple of years.
Couple of years. I'm working at the Christian Center part-time, and I'm working at Turning Point part-time, and I'm at Bethel House full-time.
Okay. I know where you're at in life now in the sense of what your profession is and the work you're doing. Go ahead and tell the folks. Let them know how that's played out and tell them what. Well, I don't want to give away too much. I'll ask you along the way. So just go ahead with that.
Sure. So I'm full-time managing Bethel House, part-time at the Christian Center, and part-time at Turning Point, Madison County, working evenings at Turning Point.
What is Turning Point?
Turning Point's a nonprofit, and we are staffed with what we refer to as peers. We are addicts, we are alcoholics, we are convicted felons that somehow or another found a better path, the right path, and we picked ourselves up, and we are now in recovery. And that's amazing. That whole concept is amazing because as my icebreaker for a brand new client or an inmate at the jail or an inmate at MCCC, when I introduce myself, I'm Scott. I work for Turning Point. I'm what's called an addictions peer recovery coach. So I'm an addict in recovery. I'm also a convicted felon. So if I were to say to you, I understand how you feel.
Strikes against you.
If I tell you I understand how you feel or I know what you're going through, I'm not talking down to you. I know how you feel and I know exactly what it is you're going through. And you get to see the tension kind of melt off these people. And
it gave them a freedom, I'm going to guess, that you get it.
I get it.
You understand the hurt, the frustration, the self-anger, the pain,
yes,
the embarrassment, the stigma.
Right.
Write the list, and you've been there.
So, not to belittle any medical professional or anything. They serve a wonderful purpose, but a lot of these folks have been through the counseling, they've been through the psychiatrist or whatever, and possibly, they meet the criteria of the university and the boards they're under, but maybe they don't have the lived experience.
Exactly.
Doesn't make me any better.
Makes you different.
Makes me a lot different. Doesn't make them any less because they're serving their God-given function and purpose. But when we can meet people where they're at and relate to their situation, you just see the tension drain out. And they're more susceptible to be more honest, more open, more emotional.
I love reading of different universities and that level of education where you get credits for life's experience.
Right.
And that's kind of where you are in that respect.
Yes.
You were granted credits, not that you needed credits, but just in parallel, kind
Right.
of nature, because you had been there. You did know. For lack of better terms, used to. There was a term used quite often, on-the-job training.
Yes.
OJT.
OJT.
Well, you had been OJT with addiction.
Yes.
You knew what it looked like trying to get out of it or trying to survive it when you're in it
Yeah.
without a place to go that night. We're talking about the winds of February, those kind of times. Am I going back to prison?
Right.
How am I going to be held accountable on this or that? But you found a way.
I did find my way, and there was no turning point for me to walk into. This was all on me, and I was in the hands of God to show me where to go, who to talk to, what, how to behave, and so on and so forth.
Tell us how your work has gone. What's it been like? What has surprised you the most in this? What are some of those over and over struggles that you deal with? I know the confidentiality factor.
Yeah.
Don't want any names, but I know you can share stories.
I could share a few stories. The most amazing thing about my coming to Turning Point was the very, very start of it. I had heard about this peer recovery coach gig, and on bended knee in prayer, I asked, I'm very interested in this. If it be your will for me, would you show me the way? Because I don't really know what to do. And 2 weeks later, executive director of Turning Point, Jason Howard, runs into me just outside the studio in the hallway. And it's like, Scott, how would you like to become a peer recovery coach? And it was just this moment where boy, would I.
You have no idea.
What do I have to do?
How quick can I get it done?
Yeah, how quick. So he was gracious enough to bring me on, pay for my education, pay for my nationwide certification and accreditation to be able to legally do this. I got on the Turning Point when they were just fleshing this thing out, kind of like there was a structure, but making it up as we go. And we use the phrase, we are flying this plane as we build it, So my experiences through here have been, how do I want to say, like, there are successes. A lot of folks that we've worked with come back in. They're like, I don't need anything. I got this job now. I'm doing this now. I'm healthy. I'm this much, and that's great. Those quick visits where to hear that good news.
Sure.
Majority of the time, though, unfortunately, the people will come in and we will talk with them, listen more than we do talk. Tell them what we were able to do, which is get them into a 28-day, and if they need so, we have a 90-day. Access to 90-day structured sober living. We can get them a doctor. We can get them a dentist. We can get them a therapist. We are a huge resource hub in the community for anybody who's willing to make the change and take the chance.
So Turning Point's how old? 5 years? Is that?
I think here we were going on 2 years here in Anderson.
Oh, is that it?
I think so.
Wow.
And our office in Elwood, that's not even 1 year yet.
Right. I know and that's where you are. Yes.
I'm predominantly here in Anderson.
Okay.
On Wednesdays, I go to the Elwood office.
Got you.
So, like I was saying, a lot of these folks, they kind of get lost to the wind. They see them, you meet them maybe a few more times, and then afterwards you never see or hear. You can't get a hold of them on the phone. They won't reply to their emails. So that's disheartening, but it's also the nature of the condition.
Yes. Yes. Are you convinced that usually that is a sign that they could very easily be struggling by losing contact, or does that fit?
It does fit perfectly. And what's unfortunate is if they do not wish to be reached, you're not going to reach them.
That's the way it is, regardless of who we are. If you want
Exactly.
to hide, you can hide.
Yeah. So we do our follow-ups 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. After 90, if there's no success or contact, we put that case on hold. So if they do decide in the future to come, we can just reopen it.
Gotcha. All right. So today, what brings you the most joy in your work? Personal joy and professional joy.
It's the fact that out of all the people, if we work with and deal with, if just one or a few of the many get it and apply it and run with it and they stay in touch, that makes ending the day so much better. Just knowing that there's a possibility we Turning Point can make a difference in somebody's journey.
Have an impact.
To have some positive impact to keep them out of the jail, the ERs, the streets, the gutters.
And that's not just for their sake.
No.
That's for the sake of society.
Yes.
You know, the jail costs us all money.
Yes.
The difficulties that go along with that, the health care, it increases costs.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can read someone at a time, we can, it's a pyramid kind of thing to where it trickles down to all of those.
It
that's
does.
Big.
We're all going to have to pay for it in some way. So that's why we have our fingers in the jail and MCCC and work release, to
Yes.
get them where they're at. And I tell a bit of my story, and then, I tell about Turning Point's about and what we can do for them.
So this is a tough question, but what do you think as I'm going to say society and
Okay.
culture, what can we do next that's going to impact recovery in a positive way? What do you think is missing right now that if we could get that holy grail, that peace, that we can make a greater impact? Not necessarily Turning Point in Madison County, but the battle as a whole.
I would beseech every legislature, every insurance executive, any board to at least consider a point of a just about instantaneous fast track approval for healthcare coverage specifically aligned for an individual's recovery. We deal with a lot of people without insurance, and it may take 30 to 40 days. Well, 30 to 40 minutes can make the difference when someone's sitting across the desk from you.
30 to 40 days, we deal with a lot of folk who unfortunately are not going to make it that long without help.
Just some type of across-the-board scholarship to at least cover 28 days. At the very least, 28-day inpatient.
To give a fighting chance.
Just to give them that shot. If they take it and run with it, that's one less dead person, incarcerated person in the asylum.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee, but it's just
No, it's a good answer.
a passionate
I like that.
request.
No, that makes total sense with the dealings that I've had and the places I've been with that. So what's your next step goal personally for Scott Bronner, peer recovery coach, recovering addict? What is, I know is to make it through tomorrow sober. I get that. But I'm talking on a, I don't know, more professional, advanced level. What do you see as your next desired step?
Right now, professionally, I'm cruising just where I want to be. I feel I need to be. I'm living independently in my personal life. I've learned to enjoy my own company and do things on my own, trying to break that codependency. I'm fine with my earnings and covering my bills and still paying my dues, reaching out still
Have you ever been in a better place in life concerning those factors, Scott?
Probably be right before my spiral. I know I was fairly happily married and had a place in Pendleton and mowed the grass and there were barbecues and my daughter was a little toddler and then that was a really happy
Had the
place.
white picket fence.
All the whole American dream
Got you.
thing, Now I'm doing it alone. So right now, professionally, I just want to stay this course, and then wherever I'm led, I'll walk through that door, whatever that looks like. Personally, I'm having to apply a great deal of patience and discernment. I would like to now share my life with an understanding woman. I would like to have, a significant other in my life, but believe me, I ain't rushing that. And I won't settle either. So
Hooray, I think that's a good attitude, all right?
Right.
What's one more thing you want the folks out there to know about recovery?
Be empathetic and supportive, but also set and maintain your boundaries with those.
Earlier I caught you, I don't remember, the thought even came to mind how you had moved almost from empathy to sympathy when you went to Mike. Was that his name? Your sponsor or the guy who was guiding you.
Yeah.
How you went to him and said you were struggling with other people.
Oh, it hurt. I was emotional about it,
And I felt like you were moving from the empathy you'd shown to sympathy, and he basically kicked you back in place with his comment about they just haven't suffered enough.
Yes.
And you realized that my sympathy, my desire for them is not as important as their desire for themselves. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. To kind of like carry on with what you were just saying, what's nice now is when I was there, or even the house manager who's running it now, somebody does get discharged, kicked out. I told them, and the manager tells them, okay, you're out. You can't stay here tonight. However, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., go see Scott at Turning Point. And he'll, or the group at Turning Point, and they'll figure something out for you. So you can't stay here, but you need to go there.
Yeah.
And then, I still have very good rapport with Bethel House and every other sobriety house here. So instead of, well, you're just out, pack, go, get, you make me sick, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can't stay here, but,
Here's an alternative.
Here's an alternative. So it will have you back if you do what they recommend, do what Turning Point recommends for you.
Well, Scott, as you know, the title of our podcast is Faith in Your Recovery.
Yes.
What's that mean to you, faith in your recovery, kind of as a wrap-up question?
Okay.
Give us your answer for that, please.
Okay. I tell people who are willing to listen, you cannot have just recovery and no faith in anything. You have to have faith. You have to have a higher power. Without your higher power, this means nothing. It's a journey and it's a struggle, and you're running to the things that hurt you as opposed to running from them. And you have got to have that dependable, loving, higher power greater than yourself that can handle the things for you that you can't.
Something stable.
Solid, timeless, eternal. You have got to have, however that looks for mine is Jesus Christ, but however that looks for the individual, you've got to have that higher power. And those who don't have one, I always make them an offer of, okay, well, you can borrow mine for a time. If you don't have the faith, you're not going to get the recovery. And you can't have recovery unless you have faith in something greater than yourself.
Yeah. I go back to something I said earlier, that if we could do it on our own, we wouldn't be where we're at.
Right. If I could do it on my own, I wouldn't have made the choice to become an addict.
Yeah.
So I can't do it on my own. It's impossible.
And the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we're going to get out of it.
Yes.
I guess it's kind of a sensitive area, but I hear people say at times, I want you to make the decision. Sometimes I'm not so confident with saying it because their decisions or what got them where they are, that they need some guidance. I can't make your decision. I can give you guidance to a better decision, I hope.
Right. After hearing all the details of what they
Yes.
lay out there, say, okay, well, here's the course I would consider taking.
Yes, that's my style.
You know.
Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, Scott, thank you for your time. Thank you for your willingness for the interview.
Thanks for having me back. I
Well,
appreciate what
it's
you
a
do
joy.
so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for the work you're doing through Turning Point, the other lives you've touched and will continue to touch. Hang in there and keep it up. God bless. Folks, we hope you got an answer today to one of your important questions. We hope that through subsequent or even some of our past podcasts, you can find an answer that'll make a difference for you and bring you nearer to recovery. And whatever you do, stay in the battle. Your answer may be around the next corner or in our next episode. And know this, you've come too far to only come this far. So stay in the battle. God bless. Thank you. Amen.